I found out my father left me nothing 4 days after we buried him. Not the house I grew up in, not his life savings, not even the watch he promised me when I turned 16. Everything, every single dollar of his $8 million estate, went to a woman he'd known for 18 months and her 2 adult children I'd met exactly 3 times. The lawyer wouldn't look me in the eye when he read the will. My hands shook so hard I dropped my coffee cup on his conference room floor, and I just sat there watching it spread across the carpet while he kept talking about clear testamentary intent and signed witnesses and legally binding. I'm going to tell you exactly how she did it, what I found, and how I made sure she never got to enjoy a single cent. My dad and I were close. Not perfect, but close. After my mom died when I was 12, it was just us for years. He taught me to drive in his old pickup truck. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding. When my daughter was born, he cried holding her in the hospital. He wasn't some distant rich guy. He was my dad. He'd built his wealth slowly, running a chain of hardware stores across 3 states, reinvesting everything, living modestly. "This is all for you someday, sweetheart," he'd say. "Everything I'm building." Then he met Patricia at a charity gala 2 weeks after his 74th birthday. She was 56, blonde, always dressed like she was going to a country club. She laughed at everything he said, touched his arm constantly. Within 3 months, they were engaged. Within 6, they were married at the courthouse with her kids as witnesses. I wasn't invited. When I asked him why, he said Patricia thought it should be small and intimate. That should have been my first clue, but I told myself to be happy for him. He'd been alone for 12 years. Maybe he deserved companionship. I swallowed my concerns and tried to build a relationship with her. I invited them to Sunday dinners. I asked about her life. She smiled and said all the right things, but her eyes were always calculating, always watching. Her son, Derek, was 38 and between opportunities. Her daughter, Michelle, was 41 and going through her 3rd divorce. Both of them suddenly started visiting my dad constantly after the wedding. The warning signs were everywhere, but I explained them away like an idiot. Dad stopped returning my calls as quickly. Our weekly lunches became monthly, then every few months. When I'd visit, Patricia was always there, hovering, steering conversations. "Your father needs his rest," she'd say, ushering me out after 20 minutes. Once, I tried to talk to him alone about updating his will. He'd mentioned wanting to set up a trust for my daughter's education. Patricia walked in mid-conversation and said, "Oh, we've already handled all that legal boring stuff, haven't we, honey?" Dad just nodded and changed the subject. Then he got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The oncologist said 6 months maybe. I wanted to take leave from work, move back home, care for him. Patricia said it wasn't necessary. She'd hired private nurses. I could visit, but not too often. Stress isn't good for him. I saw him maybe twice a week those final 2 months, always with Patricia present, always cut short. He looked so tired, so different. The last time I held his hand, 3 days before he died, I whispered, "I love you, Dad. I'll take care of everything, just like you taught me." He squeezed my hand. I thought he was trying to tell me something, but Patricia said visiting hours were over. He died on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there. Patricia called me 6 hours later. He went peacefully, she said. No emotion, like she was reporting the weather. The funeral was small. I sat in the front row at the church where my mother's funeral had been held, where Dad had sat with his arm around 12-year-old me, promising we'd get through it together. Now I was alone, and his wife of barely a year sat on the other side of the aisle with her children, whispering. They didn't cry. Not once. 4 days later, the lawyer's office. That's when my entire world shattered. The will had been changed 9 days before Dad died. 9 days. He could barely sit up, could barely speak, was on morphine around the clock. But according to the document, he'd been driven to a lawyer's office 90 minutes away, not his usual attorney of 30 years, and signed a completely new will. 2 of Patricia's friends witnessed it. The lawyer was someone I'd never heard of, someone who specialized in estate planning for blended families. I read that will 10 times in the parking lot, sitting in my car, hyperventilating. To my beloved wife Patricia, I leave my entire estate. With full confidence she will use it wisely to care for herself and her children, who have brought such joy to my final years. There was one line about me. 1. I have made separate arrangements for my daughter. There were no separate arrangements. I ugly cried in that car for 2 hours. Called my husband sobbing so hard he couldn't understand me. Then I drove to my dad's house, Patricia's house now, and she wouldn't let me in. This is a difficult time, that she said through the crack in the door. I think it's best if we have some space. Behind her, I could see Derek packing up my dad's office, boxes everywhere. They were erasing him. But that wasn't even the worst part. I hired a lawyer. A good one. She requested the medical records, the timeline, everything. And here's what we found. On the day Dad supposedly drove 90 minutes to sign that will, his morphine dose had been tripled. The hospice nurse's notes said he was minimally responsive, unable to complete sentences. He couldn't have consented to anything, let alone understood a complex legal document. We also found 3 previous will drafts on his home computer, all from the 2 months before Patricia. Every single one left everything to me, with specific bequests for my daughter's education. The last draft was dated 1 week before he met Patricia. My lawyer smiled when she saw that. We're going to bury her. What I did next. Most people told me I'd gone too far. I sued. Not just for the estate, for elder abuse, fraud, undue influence. We subpoenaed the nurses, the morphine logs, the laptop, everything. We deposed Patricia for 9 hours. She cracked, started contradicting herself, admitted she'd helped Dad communicate with the lawyer because he was confused, admitted Derek had driven him to the appointment while she held his arm the entire time. The judge didn't just rule in my favor, he excoriated her, used words like unconscionable and predatory. He voided the will entirely, reverting to Dad's previous will, the one leaving everything to me. Then he referred the case to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. Patricia and her children never faced jail time. The DA said it was too hard to prove criminal intent, but they walked away with nothing. Less than nothing, actually. They had to pay my legal fees, $240,000. I got my father's estate, I got the house, I got the watch. But more than that, I got the truth on record. A legal document stating that my father was manipulated and abused in his final days, that he never wanted to cut me out, that every choice Patricia claimed he made was a lie. I sold the house. I couldn't live there, couldn't stand the thought of where he'd spent his last months. I put half the money in trust for my daughter, exactly like Dad had wanted. The other half I donated in his name to pancreatic cancer research and to legal aid funds that help families fight estate fraud. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty for destroying Patricia's life. I don't. She destroyed my father's final months. She isolated him, medicated him, and used his failing body to rob his daughter. She gambled that I'd be too grief-stricken or too intimidated to fight back. She was wrong. If this story resonated with you, subscribe. I share a new story every single week. And drop a comment below if you've ever been betrayed by someone you completely trusted. You are not alone, and you will get through this.